Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're those friends that you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility.
Welcome back to the Springs in the Desert podcast. This is Cassandra. I'm here with one of our co-founders, Anne. How's it going?
Going great, Cassandra.
So it is March. It is the month of St. Joseph. And so we are talking this month about work. This is a topic that has hit a nerve in this community in the past for reasons that will become clear very shortly.
We hope.
Yeah, I know. We hope. If we could shed some light on this work situation. So when we are walking the path of infertility, 100% of the time our life doesn't look the way that we thought it would or hoped it would. And often work is part of that. Whether it's a negative part of that picture of life it's not always the case. Some of us have a positive relationship with work, but maybe feel guilty about it. Oh, I love my job, but I should have had kids and not be working, like we psych ourselves out. Or maybe you're a person who always longed to be a stay-at-home mom and find yourself working just because that's what you have to do or feel like that's what you have to do. Work is tricky. Work is tricky for us on the path of infertility. And a couple years ago, we had done some interesting polls. Obviously, these aren't scientific, but in our Instagram stories, we polled the community and opened up a question box. And so we thought we would just dig back into some of this stuff and just chat about it in this Desert Reflection today. The first thing that we wanted to bring up was that 91% of the community at the time on Instagram had said that their perspective on work had changed since walking with infertility. And what do you think about that? Are you in that 91% or are you in the 9% that your perspective on work hadn't changed?
No, that didn't surprise me. And I'll bet if we did that poll again, it would be very similar, if not exactly the same. Yeah, I think it's natural because you have these expectations for your life. That happens at all different stages of our life, right? When you're a little kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like an astronaut. Obviously, I am not an astronaut. I didn't really want to be one.
What did you want to be?
I wanted to be a number of different things, but the biggest thing was I wanted to be a famous actress. So spoiler alert, I am not one.
Oh.
But what did you want to be?
I wanted to be a jockey.
No kidding. Aren't you a little tall for that?
I guess it depends. I don't know what the women's height is for horse jockeys.
I have no idea. But see, that's just the point is like in different phases of your life, what you think you want can change. Your expectations can change. But certainly when you're on the path of infertility, once you find that person and you get married, you do have this expectation of a family, not necessarily that it's going to happen instantly, but it's a dream that you have for your future. And when that doesn't happen, it sets a lot of things off balance. And I think work can particularly be like a pain point when we are thinking about that infertility experience, because we maybe thought that we would only be working for a short time and that we could be a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, I would say I am probably in that 91% also, right. And how my perspective on work changed.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like I saw it from two ways because my husband and I got married. We left the country, and work, like it or not, I feel like is a big anchor for us when we are considering our own identities, right? When I went from working full-time and coaching on the side and ended up in Spain, aimless, I was like, I had to sacrifice my work. But then when it's like the years go on and we never had children and now biologically we never will, and it's work is what I have to do. That's what I have to do. And it's a little bit like I was never a person that had lofty career ambitions, and I wasn't super driven in that regard. And it's complicated, right? And I didn't make the best choices, like the most intelligent choices in college when picking a major or whatever. I didn't exactly set myself up for success. So then when you find out that, oh, like I am going to be working like for the foreseeable future, and then it's, oh no,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do? So yeah, it's tricky. It's
Yeah.
tricky. The second poll that we wanted to mention was that 69% of the community, this is still back in 2022, maybe we can repeat and do a little scientific comparison. 69% struggle to find a balance between work and rest. And this really hit home for me because I feel like we've talked before about how children in the home provide natural boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just work until 6 and then be like, I wonder what's for dinner, speaking from personal experience, because there's nothing stopping us from doing that, right? But if you have littles in the home, it's obviously they need you. They need your attention and to be fed, etc. So if you don't have children in the home, I feel like you really do need to be a lot more intentional about carving out that family time and even just personal time. Yeah, I need to eat. I need to take a break. I need to go for a walk outside.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because especially if we're on that, like what I call that hamster wheel of trying to conceive and going through treatments, and that almost becomes like our job. Let's face it, that's work, right? Like it's work to do the chart and to go to the doctor's appointments and to read all the labels on your food and get all the toxic ingredients out, and all that kind of stuff can turn into a full-time job. And we can become, I think, unintentionally neglectful of our marriage because we can be so focused on like doing this job and getting it right and being successful at it that we forget that it is important. Like our husband, our wife is our family. So we can't forget about that. And it's important to continue to nurture the marriage. And then also it's good for us to have a time of rest too, to just sit and read a book or take a nap if we're tired and not feel bad about that and not feel selfish about that. That kind of thing is good. It's good for us and it's good for our marriage.
And I will just mention too, like technology and phones. I'm coming from, my husband and I are part of a community that is like skews towards the lower tech. So I didn't grow up with that kind of awareness about technology. I remember getting a smartphone. I'm going to date myself, but yeah, I think most of my time in college, I like didn't even have one.
Yeah.
We're still learning as humans what it means to have technology. But I feel like if you have children in the home, then you're like a little bit more aware that you're like checking emails, like at certain times that should be like family time, or just like scrolling your phone. And then it's just, oh, wait, but my husband and I, we're still a family and we still should have that time of being present with each other.
Yes.
So we wanted to highlight a few of the responses that we received a couple years ago when we had opened up this question box about our relationship with work in a season of infertility, because there are some things we just wanted to draw out here and comment on. And I'm going to be paraphrasing some of these responses, but we did have one person say that it's hard. Yeah, it's hard when you wanted to just be a mom to have to work or to work because there doesn't seem like there's anything else to do, but that you have to try to see fruitfulness in it. And this is so important, right? Because work is an arena of our life and where we do have a call to sanctity, right?
Yeah, and I think work is so relative, right? Like we may be in a job or in a career that we've always wanted or that's so fulfilling. Work can also be just strictly utilitarian. We need to work in order to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table and all that sort of thing. But whatever our situation is, I think it's important for us to see that work as being beneficial to our family. And again, just because we may not have children or our family size may not be what we had hoped or expected, doesn't mean that the work that we do isn't fruitful and good for our home. And we've talked a number of times on other podcast episodes about the importance of building our home, making our home a domestic church. Like even if our work isn't super fulfilling or not really fulfilling in the moment, it might be helpful just to keep reorienting ourselves back to the reason that we're doing this work, which is for the good of our family, the good of our marriage, and building a home. And that it's good for us to build a home, even if that home just has 2 people in it.
And we had someone else say that there is often, no, they said, although it's not what I'd rather be doing, it's also life-giving to develop myself and my gifts. And I think that's so true. We have a responsibility, right, to steward our talents, right, like the parable in the Bible. And work is an area for us to learn new things and develop and grow as people. So I think that's really a beautiful opportunity too. If we have a career and a place that we're valued and can work on ourselves and develop and learn, that can really be a positive too.
And I think sometimes, if I could just say, sometimes we think about, like in the culture, this idea of like self-fulfillment or self-actualization, which is super like just turned inward and really self-centered. I think it's good when we can find fulfillment in our work, as you said, developing our gifts and our talents, because that ends up feeding our marriage. It brings life into our marriage. It brings life to our spouse. And that, I think, will naturally spill out into the rest of the world, into our community, and the way that we volunteer, or how we make financial gifts to charity, or how we interact in our relationships. So that's another kind of way of reorienting.
Yeah, definitely. So another response we wanted to just touch on here is someone wrote in and said, I would love nothing more than to stay at home, but I can't just wait around to get pregnant. And you and I, when we were talking before, we were just like, wow, like that's so true. We're called to live our lives today, right? We're not promised anything. We're not promised tomorrow. And it's just, this is where we're called to be today. Sometimes work is part of that. Sometimes work we don't enjoy is part of that. And it's part of our call to holiness today. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there are 2 things there. First of all, to acknowledge that that really is a loss, whether that ends up being temporary or that sort of ends up being the shape that our marriage takes. It's important for us to be able to acknowledge that this was my expectation, this was my hope and dream, and it's unfulfilled. And I'm sad about that. So we need to be able to acknowledge that. And I think sometimes we can be afraid to do that because we think, oh my gosh, I'm going to sound really selfish. But it's important for us to acknowledge it. But then to also acknowledge that we are not meant to just then put our life on hold, that it's okay for us to reevaluate where we are, and also to continue dreaming, to continue looking for maybe what God has in store for us next. And whether or not children end up coming, God still wants us to live, and He wants us to live a good life. And as we always say, to be fruitful in whatever He has planned for us, as you said, today. That's all we have to worry about is today.
I really appreciate what you said too about continuing to dream, because we find ourselves in this situation we don't want to be in, we never would have chosen, which is finding ourselves on the path of infertility, right? But often, I don't know about often, but I would say sometimes that can mean that we have time at our disposal that maybe we have dedicated to other things, but maybe we have flexibility in how that time is arranged. Maybe we have a little financial flexibility. Again, not all of us. We encounter all kinds of people in this community who are in the throes of treatments, which are very expensive, and adoption processes and the whole thing. But maybe it's a situation where you can afford to make a change. Like maybe you have a passion that has been latent that now you have maybe some room or flexibility to rediscover, or that you and your spouse can discern that maybe you're able to take a little bit of a risk in the work area in order to follow a call from God that maybe you wouldn't have been able to otherwise, if that makes sense.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. To look for those opportunities that God places before us to continue to dream big, but to do that together in your marriage, to dream together and to be able to feel free to share that. And if it's not the right time to take that risk, that's okay. Like discern that together. But yeah, just keep dreaming.
Yeah. So the other side of that, I'm going to read 2 separate responses. This is the other side of that coin to me. One person wrote that I wanted to be a homemaker. It feels like that's unrealistic and selfish now that children are unattainable, but we both made financial mistakes and now we have no choice to have 2 incomes. And then we had a related comment that was, I felt pressured to continue working and ashamed to stay at home without kids at first. And now I moved past that pressure to work and understand the benefits for having me at home. Yeah, those are 2 sides of this one coin of staying at home, that some of us have financial burdens and things in our past and present that are causing it to be necessary, that there are 2 incomes in the home. That's a sacrifice. And then the other side is overcoming like maybe a perceived stigma about staying home without kids, but moving past that because they discerned that was what was best for their family.
Yeah, and that was the key word, Cassandra. They discern. So I would say there's 3 words that came to mind. Evaluate your situation and where you are right now. Communicate, talk to each other about it, check in with each other. This is how I'm feeling, or this is what I want to try, or right now I think we probably have to have 2 incomes, or whatever the situation might be. And then discern together, pray over it. Continue to talk about it and reevaluate. Just because maybe where you are today doesn't mean that can't change in a couple months or in a year or 5 years. So it's okay to continue to evaluate where you are and what you need and how you're feeling and what's best for your family. But it's important to be honest with each other and to communicate and to do that together.
Yeah. And just the last thing we wanted to touch on, this is our last person here who wrote in, was that there's often a difficulty in both the employer and employee. So the person writing in, recognizing family time. And to me, this rings so true. And it goes back to just what I was saying earlier about the boundaries that children introduce into the home. If the children aren't there in the home, then we have to introduce those boundaries ourselves and recognize that family time is important for our families of 2. That it is absolutely necessary, and that we need to treat ourselves also like human beings and not like working robots that can be on all the time because there's no children in the home or less children in the home.
No, that's absolutely right. That last point about treating ourselves like human beings. People on the outside may look at us and judge 6 ways from Sunday. We've talked about this in other podcasts and on our blog of the perceptions that people have of us. In the end, that doesn't matter. What matters is what we know about each other and how we are nurturing our marriage, building up each other, giving each other life, taking care of ourselves and our health and all of those kinds of things. And remembering that, yeah, we are human beings. We're not less than anybody who has children or a carload of children or whatever the case might be. We deserve also that family time, and we shouldn't feel guilty about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We hope that you enjoyed this desert reflection today. And if work is a sticky or sore subject for you, just know that we're here with you. We understand. I understand that work can bring up a lot of difficulties. It can bring temptations to resentment and maybe my most common temptation, which is a temptation to being cranky. But it can also be a fertile ground for grace, for growth, for fruitfulness, both in ourselves and for the people around us, our employees and coworkers and whoever we come into contact with, and just an opportunity to be life-giving through St. Joseph's intercession. If you're at work today, we hope that you can see some of that grace in it all. Amen. And we are here with you in it. God bless you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. We would be so grateful if you took a minute to rate and review us so that we can reach more listeners. Don't forget to check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter and community prayer list, read our blog, and register for virtual and in-person events. Most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.